When I first got the job, it felt like a lifeline. I was in a rough patch, laid off, broke, sleeping on my buddy Kyle's couch in Portland. So when the Forest Service offered me a night dispatcher position at Bear Valley National Park, I didn't hesitate. A cabin, solitude, and a steady paycheck. Hell yes. Bear Valley wasn't one of those touristy spots. It was isolated, all pine and fog, with more rumors than hikers. The ranger station was old school, CB radios, rotary logs, and creaky wooden floors. My job was simple: stay in the dispatch cabin from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., monitor the radios, log check-ins from the firewatch towers, and alert rangers if anything serious came up. But during orientation, my supervisor, a guy named Dennis who smelled like mildew and motor oil, said something strange. "Look," he grunted, tapping a laminated map of the park. "You'll hear calls from tower number 4. Ignore them." I blinked. Ignore. Just write down the timestamp. Don't respond. Don't log the message. Pretend it never happened. Why? Dennis rubbed his temples and muttered, "Because tower number 4 burned down in '97. I thought he was screwing with me. But he wasn't smiling. The guy inside, Marty Elkins, never made it out. Body was never found. Since then, calls still come through from that tower. Always at night. Don't respond. Ever." I wanted to laugh it off. But the seriousness in his eyes gave me pause. "You'll do fine," he said, handing me a thermos and keys to the dispatch cabin. "Just remember the rules." That first night was uneventful. Crickets, a bit of static from the CB, and long stretches of silence. I watched a raccoon circle the cabin. Logged some minor stuff. Heard Tower 2 radio in about a lightning strike far off. Routine. Then, at 2:47 a.m., the radio crackled with life. "Dispatch, this is tower number 4. I see something in the woods, it's not moving right." The voice was male. Calm. A little shaky. I stared at the radio, my hand hovering over the mic. "It's looking at me. I think it knows I can see it." My fingers twitched toward the button. But I didn't press it. Instead, I wrote the timestamp down, just like Dennis told me. I sat there in silence, heart hammering. "It's smiling." The radio cut out. I didn't sleep a second after that. But that wasn't the worst part. When I stepped out to breathe at dawn, I saw it, muddy footprints. Human-sized, barefoot, leading from the woods, to the dispatch cabin door. And back. They weren't mine. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe some local hiker messing with the new guy. But Bear Valley wasn't that kind of park. You needed clearance to get in at night. There were gates. Cameras. Rangers. Still, I tried to shake it off. I logged the prints, didn't mention Tower 4, and didn't tell Dennis. I figured if he caught wind I was getting spooked on day 1, he'd have me replaced faster than you could say, paranoia. Night 2 started the same. Quiet. Cold. Moonless. I kept the lights off inside the dispatch cabin so I could see out the windows better. There was a comfort in watching the blackness of the woods, even if they watched back. At 2:03 a.m., the radio hissed again. "Dispatch, it's closer tonight." Same voice. Calm, but brittle like glass about to shatter. I didn't move. "But it's closer. I can see its eyes now." I wrote the timestamp. My hand shook slightly. "Don't look at it. Don't acknowledge it. That's what it wants." The silence that followed was worse than the voice. I didn't sleep again. Around 4 a.m., I walked the perimeter of the cabin, flashlight in hand. No prints this time. Nothing unusual. But when I came back inside, something was off. The logbook. It was sitting open on the desk, flipped to a blank page. My last entry, midnight check-in, was still fresh. But something had been scrawled underneath it in shaky graphite. "Why aren't you answering me? I didn't write that. I don't even keep a pencil on the desk." The next day, I tried to find Dennis. He wasn't in his office. The other rangers were vague when I asked. "He goes off the grid sometimes," one said, shrugging. "Says it's the only way to stay sane out here." So that night, I came in armed with coffee, a crowbar, and a renewed determination to keep my cool. But around 1:30 a.m., something tapped on the window. 3 slow knocks. I spun around, but saw nothing. Just trees and moonlight. Then the radio came alive. "It's at your cabin tonight." I lunged for the light switch. My fingers froze. Because I could see it now, barely, just beyond the edge of the trees. A figure. Not moving. Not breathing. Just standing there. Watching. Tall. Thin. Like its limbs were too long. I backed away from the window. The radio hissed again. "You saw it, didn't you? No timestamp. No tower ID. Just silence after that. Except for a whisper behind me. Why didn't you answer me?" I didn't scream. I couldn't. I turned, slowly. The cabin was empty. No one behind me. But the whisper had been real. The breath on my neck had been real. I grabbed the crowbar and backed into the far corner of the room, flashlight beam jittering across the walls. Nothing. At 3:12 a.m., the radio crackled. "Dispatch, this is tower number 4. I've got coordinates for you." I should have ignored it. I didn't. I reached for the mic before I could stop myself. My finger hovered just above the button. 47, 6 by 122. 03. A pause. They buried something here. I yanked my hand back like the radio had burned me. The voice was too calm. Too steady. I shouldn't have written it down. But I did. The next morning, I searched the coordinates. They pointed to a spot in the park deep in the North Woods, past the old fire roads. The map called it Section J. I remembered that name from orientation. Section J had been cordoned off years ago due to unstable ground, but nobody gave specifics. Still, curiosity won. Around 11 a.m., I borrowed an ATV under the pretense of checking camera traps and drove out to the edge of Section J. The trail was overgrown, trees twisted unnaturally. It was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Heavy quiet. Like the forest was holding its breath. I walked the last mile. The trees grew closer together until it felt like I was being funneled. Herded. The coordinates led me to a small clearing. The ground had been disturbed, recently. The soil was too loose, too dark. I dug. About 2 feet down, my fingers struck something. Metal. A rusted lunchbox. I pulled it free, pried it open. Inside were a cassette tape labeled Play ME in smeared red ink. A single photograph of a Firewatch tower. And a pair of broken glasses. On the back of the photo, Marty Elkins, 1997. I stood there in the stillness, tape in hand, heart pounding like a war drum. Then I heard it. The low hum of static. Coming from my walkie. "Thank you," the voice whispered. And then, laughter. Not human. Not quite. Back at the cabin, I stared at the cassette. It was warm. Not like sun-exposed, warm, body warm. Like someone had just been holding it. I didn't have a player, but the ranger station did. I waited until morning, drove out to the main lodge under the excuse of dropping off maintenance logs, and ducked into the archives. Found an old tape deck. Popped it in. Pressed play. The tape hissed, whined, and then began. Recording click. A man's voice, hoarse, barely audible. "This is Marty Elkins. If you found this, I'm already dead. Or worse." I froze. It started with lights in the tree line. Blue ones. I thought it was lightning, but the sky was clear. Then came the whispers. I thought I was losing my mind. A pause. Breathing. But I wasn't alone up here. Something climbed into the tower one night. It didn't make noise. It didn't need to. It looked like me. The hair on my neck stood up. It smiled. Spoke in my voice. Said it needed to be heard. That if I didn't listen, it would find someone who would. Another pause. I've locked it in a crawlspace under the tower. I don't know how long the nails will hold. If this is still broadcasting. A loud crack. Screaming. Metal tearing. Something wet, squelching. Then, silence. Except for one final whisper, close to the mic. It listens too. End of tape. I ejected it, hands shaking. If the tower burned down in '97, how the hell was someone still transmitting from it? That night, I almost didn't go back. But the guilt kept me tethered. Someone, or something, was reaching out. And I had answered. The radio was dead until 3:03 a.m. Then. It got out. No station ID. Just static afterward. Then 3 words, scratched into the condensation on the inside of the cabin window. "You're next, Ben." I never told it my name. That night, I boarded up the windows from the inside. I barricaded the door. Moved the desk in front of it. Crowbar next to me. Flashlight on. Batteries checked. I didn't care if Dennis fired me. I wasn't leaving the cabin. At 2:41 a.m., the CB crackled again. "Dispatch, this is tower number 2. Can you confirm visual on subject approaching your location?" I grabbed the mic, finally, a normal call. "Tower 2, negative. I don't see anything out here." Silence. Then Tower 2 came back, slower this time. "Are you sure, dispatch? He's standing right behind you." I spun around, crowbar raised. Nothing. Just the wall. Then I noticed it, the reflection in the radio glass. There was a shape behind me. I turned, again, nothing. Except now the door I'd barricaded. It was open. I didn't sleep. Just waited for sunrise like it was going to save me. First light hit the trees, and I stepped outside for the first time in hours. Everything looked normal. Birds, dew, the usual forest calm. Until I noticed my backup radio was missing. I found it about 20 yards from the cabin. On the ground. Still transmitting. It was stuck on a loop. A voice repeating over and over. "Ben. Ben. Ben." I snapped it in half. Threw it into the woods. That's when I heard something behind me, feet crunching leaves. I turned. It was Dennis. But something was wrong. His uniform was filthy, his beard longer than I remembered, and his eyes, those weren't Dennis's eyes. "Been watching you," he said, voice low and syrupy. "You hear it now, don't you?" I stepped back. "What the hell are you talking about?" Dennis tilted his head. "That thing in Tower 4. It doesn't die. It just moves." I blinked. And he smiled. His teeth were wrong. Too many. I ran. All the way to the ranger station. Busted through the door, panting and bloody from the branches. Dennis, real Dennis, was there. Drinking coffee. Looked up like I was crazy. "I thought you took the day off," he said. I stared at him. Pale. You were just in the woods. He frowned. Ben, I've been here since 6. Haven't left. I didn't say anything. But I noticed the photo on the wall behind his desk. A ranger team. Smiling. Labeled, Bear Valley, 1997. Dennis was in the picture. So was Marty Elkins. And standing next to them, a man who looked just like me. I couldn't stop staring at that photo. Same jawline. Same eyes. The man, my double, was wearing a uniform just like mine, down to the badge. Except the name tag didn't say Ben. It said Elkins. Marty Elkins. Dennis must have noticed my face draining because he leaned back and said, they never did find his body, you know. I swallowed. Marty? He nodded slowly. Fire took the tower down, but they said there was no remains. Just ash. No bones. No clothes. Nothing. Like the damn forest swallowed him whole. I tried to play dumb. What do you mean? Dennis chuckled, but it didn't feel like humor. You ever get that feeling, Ben? Like you've been somewhere before? Like something's watching you, but it's not looking, it's remembering. I left without another word. Back at the cabin that night, I didn't unpack. Didn't sit down. I locked the door and shoved everything I owned into a duffel. I was done. I didn't care about the paycheck anymore. But as I reached for my car keys, the lights went out. All of them. The radio turned on. Static. Then a voice. Where are you going, Ben? My heart thudded in my throat. I stepped outside. The night was dead quiet. Then I heard it, crackling, far off. Fire. Coming from the north. Toward the old Tower 4 site. And then I saw them. Figures. Dozens. Moving through the trees. Some wore ranger uniforms. Some were half naked. All of them with glowing eyes and slack faces, like they were being worn. One in front was carrying the broken radio I'd smashed in the woods. And smiling. The smile didn't reach its eyes. I turned to run, only to find someone standing behind me. Me. Not just someone who looked like me. Same jacket. Same scar on the hand. Same everything. He looked at me, then tilted his head with the same motion Dennis had used. You came back, he said. I didn't move. You always come back. Then everything went black. I woke up inside the dispatch cabin. On the floor. The lights were on again. Coffee machine blinking like nothing had happened. I checked my watch, 3:14 a.m. No time had passed. Or too much had. The only evidence of the night before was the duffel bag still packed by the door and the deep ache in my ribs. Like something had been pressing on me. I stumbled outside. No footprints. No figures in the trees. No fire. But on the porch was the cassette player. The tape inside was different this time. The label just read, Ben. I played it. Nothing at first. Then a voice. My voice. I see you now. Then static. Then. I remember burning. Over and over. And each time, I wake up wearing someone else's skin. You were just next. A long pause. But you resisted. Click. End of tape. I didn't know what to do. I drove to the ranger station again. This time, Dennis was gone. Nobody knew where. No one had seen him in over a week, they said. I asked about the photo on the wall. There was no photo. I swear it had been there. The one with Marty, and Dennis, and me. But now there was just an empty frame. I went back to the cabin one last time to get my things. That's when I noticed the map on the wall. Someone had scratched a path into it with a knife, leading from Tower 4 to the dispatch cabin, to the ranger station, to my cabin in town. And drawn a final mark beside it. A tiny, perfect circle. Labeled simply, nowhere. That night, I locked every door and window in my house. Put salt along the thresholds. But at exactly 2:47 a.m., my home radio, dead for years, crackled to life. Dispatch, this is tower number 4. Do you copy? I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then. It's smiling again. And from the corner of the room, something smiled back. I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, crowbar in hand, staring at the radio. The voice didn't return, but the static stayed. Whispering just below hearing. Like it was waiting. At sunrise, I made a decision. If this thing started with tower number 4, I was going there. Not the ashes. The foundation. I took a risk. Borrowed a bolt cutter from maintenance, lied about checking a fallen tree near the north perimeter, and went off-grid. The path was sealed by a rusted chain and a hand-painted sign. Do not enter, decommission zone. I cut the chain. The woods in Section J were wrong. Not just overgrown, angry. Trees leaned toward the trail. Birds didn't sing. The wind carried something that sounded like breathing. The clearing was smaller than I expected. Charred beams jutted from the ground, the skeletal remains of the tower. But the concrete foundation was intact. And there was a hatch. Old. Iron. Locked tight. I pried it open. The smell hit me first, wet ash and meat. The crawlspace was barely high enough to move in. My flashlight cut through the dust and darkness, and I saw carvings. Hundreds of them. All over the walls. Tally marks. And names. Ben. Marty. Dennis. Kyle. Bree. Names I didn't recognize, and names I did. In the corner, there was a mirror. Framed in wood. Untouched by soot or time. And in it, I saw the tower. Whole. Rebuilt. As if it had never burned. But that wasn't the worst part. In the reflection. I was already inside it. Looking back at myself. The mirror Ben raised a hand. So did I. The mirror Ben smiled. I didn't. Then he mouthed something. I leaned in. And in perfect silence, he said. You were never real. I stumbled out of the crawlspace, vision swimming, air thick like molasses. Nothing made sense. I looked back at the mirror one last time before slamming the hatch shut. My reflection was still inside. Still smiling. Still mouthing those words. You were never real. I ran. The trail twisted in directions it hadn't before. Trees leaned in. I swear some of them had faces. But I made it back. Somehow. To the dispatch cabin. Only, something was wrong. The cabin wasn't boarded up anymore. The coffee machine was where I'd found it on day 1. The map on the wall was pristine. No marks. No paths. The calendar still read April 7th. My first night. I checked my bag. It was gone. The duffel, the crowbar, even my own ID. Then the radio chirped. Dispatch, this is tower number 2. Ready for night check-in. Over. My hands moved on their own. Copy that, tower 2. Go ahead. My voice. Calm. Robotic. The logbook was open in front of me. Blank. Waiting. And then the voice came again. Dispatch, this is tower number 4. I see something in the woods. I froze. The same words. The same timestamp. 2:47 a.m. Exactly like before. That's when I knew. I wasn't just trapped in the park. I was part of it. Another voice in the woods. Another Ben, waiting at the dispatch desk. Another Marty, watching the fire start again. The cabin, the tape, the mirror, it was all the same story. And the forest? It was telling it. Over and over and over. Each time a little different. Each time a little worse. Because the thing in tower number 4 didn't want to escape. It wanted audience. I tried everything. Burned the logbook. Smashed the radio. I even carved warnings into the cabin walls: don't answer, ignore tower 4, you're not real, but every morning, the cabin reset. The carvings vanished. The radio was back. The tape would be waiting. And the voice would always say, "It's smiling." Days? Weeks? I don't know how long I've been here. Time's melted. Some nights, I can hear them, the others. Copies of me, trapped in other loops. Their screams bleed through the radio static. Sometimes I catch my own voice. But last night, something changed. At 2:47 a.m., tower number 4 called in. As always. Only this time, the voice said, "You're not alone tonight." And the radio kept broadcasting. It wasn't my voice. It was yours. You heard this story. You read it. The loop let something through. So now the voice has a new listener. Maybe you're sitting in bed. Or on a bus. Or in a quiet room with a screen glowing in front of you. It knows. You're listening. You've already tuned in. You've already heard it say, "This is tower number 4. And now the voice is smiling. Because you didn't ignore it. You answered.